Welcome to another episode of High Pressure Podcast. We're so great and happy to have, John Raquet here from, GasWorld. And we've known each other for years. And I've always been fascinated about the different people you talk to in all across the world, not just a country, but I mean, you are talking to people all across the world. I think everybody in about every country knows who you are and also knows about, your magazine and your website and all the other good functions you put on many amazing conferences around the country and the world, and also dive into certain technologies in certain areas like hydrogen or helium, and very, very specific and also very broad. So looking forward to all the good ideas and thoughts you're going to bring across today, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, George. Thank you to you and Marie, and for this opportunity. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we were thinking about is the fact that in the world, we all dealt with things just came at us last year, right? In 2020. I mean, it just happened to us. And then we had, the famous, it's always interesting as different years happen and events happen, how words become very popular. And the word pivot became a really big word, because you had to now pivot and do things a little differently. And as we look at 2020, some of the things that happened differently, I wanted to kind of get maybe your highlight of some of the key areas you think were those significant changes.
Well, okay. Yeah, certainly. And when we're talking about this, I'll try and kind of refer more of it to what's been happening in the US and in North America in particular. But there's no different. It's been an issue right around the world. 2020 was certainly a challenge and a challenge for our industry. I think what I'd like to do is just say something on an optimistic note, despite some of the doom and gloom that has been bandied around for 2020, in that let's not forget that our industry, the industrial gases industry, is a pretty robust industry, right? And I've been monitoring this business since 1980, basically. And over that time, when we've had basically 4 worldwide recessions, and they've occurred almost every 10 years, kind of every 9-10 years. There was 80-81. You and I are old enough to remember that. The youngsters probably won't. But then there was one in 1991. Then you had 2001, right? And then, of course, you had the financial crisis in 2009. In the 3 previous ones, in the economic correction, as I say, worldwide, our industry slowed down, but it never dipped into the negative situation, right, overall. So our industry is pretty robust. Obviously, in the financial crisis in 2009, everything stopped, and even our industry got impacted. And overall, worldwide, probably in the US, it was slightly more than this, but our industry declined by about 9-10% in 2009 over 2008. But the positive thing was that it rebounded and actually recovered to the level of 2008 in about 2011. So you have this V-shaped kind of recovery.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go through that before explaining what's been happening in 2020. And in a sense, we've seen a couple of quarters, and I apply this both to the gas companies and the equipment manufacturers and the gas distributors, all kind of customers of yours, right, Ratermann, but all very proactive in the US market. And we have seen a dip, but in terms of 2020, but we're hoping that the recovery is going to be in that V-shaped recovery and not what we call a hockey stick, and could be an ice hockey stick or even a grass hockey stick, right, sort of tick mark. So we're hoping for a recovery on that. So we have a very robust industry.
Right. Yeah. So we like hockey. We just don't want the hockey stick for our.
No, exactly. So basically, what happened last year, we kickstarted the first quarter, and in the US, all the signs were positive, right? Because obviously COVID hadn't kicked in, right, at that stage, and both the gas companies and the gas distributors reporting about plus 3% growth in that first quarter over the previous year. It all kind of started to hit the proverbial fan in quarter two, and we saw figures similarly in both gas distributors and gas companies at about I think it's about 7%, negative 7% growth. However, what we saw in the gas distributors is that the gas side was minus 7% or decline of 7%, but the actual hard goods business was a lot more impacted. It was down about minus 12%. So in the third quarter, there was still a negative impact across the board in terms of gas and equipment, but we started to see some positiveness in the last quarter. Now, some of those results are still coming out. You know, at the end of January, beginning of February, we'll be hearing some of the figures for the year end. So the bottom line is, for gas distributors, from a gas front, they were about evens to a tad negative. On the equipment, the hard goods side, it was certainly negative, right? But there are some other reasons for that, and we could probably go into that in a couple of
because because one of the things that I find fascinating is the fact that what is a negative sometimes becomes a positive, right? And later when you look at it, so what you can extract out of 2020, because I think a lot of us all feel like, you know, we don't want to revisit 2020. That's just a year that could be fine to be gone, right? Although there are some things we all did in business that probably have a real benefit to replicate more of. And, you know, things like the fact that just how we're doing this meeting today, we might a year or 2 years ago said, hey, when you're out in the country, we'll get together, sit down and have a podcast to be able to do like that. So there are some things that really systemically have changed. And I thought it'd be interesting if there's like 2 or 3 bullet points from your view that you think really extract out of 2020 that really are a benefit when distributors or businesses look at operating themselves moving into 2021. They should, you know, hold on to that and maybe, you know, replicate it or maybe even enhance it more than they do today.
Well, one of the things, and I don't think this is necessarily a COVID thing, but what has probably focused the mind of the distributors, particularly in the US, is this relationship between the hard goods, welding and consumables and hard goods, and gas, right? And we were already seeing that relationship of gas distributors starting to be impacted, not because of COVID. We were seeing that in 2017, 18, 19, with the impact of the MRO suppliers, the Grangers, the Amazons of this world, offering welding equipment and consumables directly and able to supply the actual welders themselves directly, and not needing to actually buy these goods from the gas distributors. Okay, so then obviously with the downturn in the welding sector in 2020, this has really focused the minds of the gas distributors in that they unless they do something different in terms of how they manage the gas, the hard goods and the consumables, they're going to lose out to the Amazons and so on. And one of the areas that I think the gas distributors can take into 2021 is to differentiate themselves from what can be supplied by Amazon and Grainger, etc., is training, right? And so you're seeing some distributors open up training centers to train welders on how to use gases and the equipment. That's a very valuable kind of way of keeping that loyalty of the welders that, you know, Amazons can't train you, Graingers can't train you, the other ones can't train you. So that's one area of positive. Communicating and how you communicate with the customer. I mean, what's quite interesting and something I don't know if you yourselves experience this, but the scourge of any salesperson, the real problem that salespeople have is actually getting hold of their customers, right?
Yeah.
In a normal time, right? The voicemail often is the barrier that you face, that you get someone's voicemail and you can leave a message, But if you're selling something, no one likes to ring back a salesman, right? Okay. So it makes life hard work. And what we've seen is obviously, certainly we've seen this side of the pond, but obviously we've experienced it over your side of the pond, is how, by offices being closed and people working from home, how it's a lot more difficult to get hold of people to have a transaction, right? Now, you can have Zoom meetings, you can have team meetings and any other sort of video call. That's in a sense enhanced the ability to communicate with customers, but you've got to get over that first hurdle, right? They've got to accept your invite to have a video meeting. But so that's something that I think people will start to build upon. Yes, we've all had those video parties where you've had dinner parties and drinks parties, via Zoom. I think people started to get a bit tired of that, but business-wise, if it's used in the right way, could be effective tools. So those are two things that have really come out of 2020 that I think we can take with us in 2021 and improve on.
Yeah, because you bring up a good point. Like you talk about the video parties and all the Zoom parties and things like that. And I had a surprise. My birthday's April 1st, and I know that's hard to believe that I'd be born on April Fool's Day. But and my family, because we're all shut down in Northern California, COVID, they had a surprise birthday party for me. And I gotta say, here when we did some things on the property, we came up and here's this big TV with speakers and all that, and pops up on the TV. Friends of mine from around the world,
Right. Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Never would have thought of doing that before, right? I mean, that was just amazing. I'm sitting there talking to all these folks, and they hadn't seen each other for years. It was pretty cool.
Yes.
In a normal time, I don't think all those people would be flying in just to say hi for a day. So it is a thing to still grab onto, but maybe it's just done in a different way. Not necessarily the parties, but from a work perspective, it just might be. As I think what you're saying is that there's this technology that, in a way, everybody's forced to kind of get on, right? I think everybody's probably done a Zoom meeting now. So to be invited to something like that, it's not like, gosh, I don't know how to download it, or I'm not sure if I got the camera. I think everybody's got all that, right? So it is something enhanced as we look into 2021.
Yeah, but it's got to be used in the not the appropriate way, but in an effective way.
Yeah, there's got to be value to it, right? I mean, just like any good salesperson, if you're bringing a lot of value or solution to a customer that would bring him benefits and be able to serve his customer better, they have a pretty high interest to talk to you.
So those are the two items, and I think the third one that I've noticed, again, particularly with the gas distributors, is they've realized that they've got to focus more on the gas side of the business because of the threats from the consumables and hard goods side. And there's an increase in the distributors actually buying their own sort of logistics for moving liquid around. They know about the cylinders, that's been part and parcel of their business, but they're certainly gaining ground in the micro bulk and even in bulk sectors. So we're seeing particularly the larger distributors buying their own tankers, so they've got a bit more flexibility and gives them a bit more purchasing power when looking around for liquid supplies.
Sure. Yeah, that's very true. And we've seen that same trend in a lot of the trailers and a lot, as we do a lot of the cryogenic valving and all the different equipment. There's been a very large uplift in that area. You're right. People want to have more control. They can go to different facilities. There's not an issue with shortages and things like that can be filled in. So that has been a big trend. I agree. That's probably futuristically will continue to be a trend. And then also it makes it easier, like on our Arctic Fox tanks, we have the bulk fitting, so you can hook up to nowadays a 6,000 liter or 3,000 liter. You can hook up a bulk truck fitting. So it has changed the landscape quite a bit there.
So so I again, I'm kind of optimistic despite the pessimism around the COVID and so on, and how, particularly in the States, state by state has a different story to tell on the impact, and also where they've seen growth and also decline, in various sectors. So and
the diversity of most gas distributors is pretty great. you got the beverage market, and you've got the, semiconductor market, and then you have all the things even down to, cryotherapy. And then you go across to all the manufacturing, heavy manufacturing, light manufacturing, maintenance, pretty broad spectrum of areas. And the expertise, and really the average distributor's expertise is pretty darn phenomenal. Everything from how to do welding to how to use, gases and all different kinds of applications. So I think that I'm extremely optimistic of 2021. I think 2021 is going to be a record year for everybody. I really do. I think that all the learnings everybody had from 2020 and restructuring and looking at pivot, whatever good words we use, I think that those are really going to pay off for people in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would like to see that there's the rebound from the lost business in 2020, right? To see that. I'm not sure if it will be a record year, but one's got to be optimistic that we certainly expect to see a bounce back.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, we still have another quarter or maybe 2 quarters of all the effects of COVID and some things maybe we aren't aware of that might still be coming down the line. But I think that when we get to the 3rd or 4th quarter, it just seems like there's a real pent up need and demand and opportunities for the gas distributors.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else that you find that really pivots from the 2020 or gives opportunity when people have, and we talk about communication, you talked about, the focus on gases and some of the things happening there. Anything else that you find stand out?
Well, I guess from a gas side, clearly 2 of the factors that came to fore and where the spotlight shone on one was medical oxygen, right?
Yeah.
Now, in the main, that's the domain of the major gas companies because that's all down to liquid supplies to hospitals, right? But still, there's been an issue related to getting enough oxygen supplies, right, through to the patient. That's going to obviously continue. So any of the distributors or gas companies that are involved in supplying hospitals and clinics and everything, oxygen is the way, the path to hopefully recovery in terms of the patient, but also recovery to the gas companies as well.
Right. And I agree with that. We're expecting probably the next 3 or 4 months. We sell a lot of vaporizers and all, and we know that a lot of the hospitals were undersized, and we expect to see probably for at least the next 3 or 4 months that same ongoing upgrading and a lot of the piping and a lot of the different elements because it's such a higher volume of liters per minute for the oxygen. And by the way, I saw you on the BBC, so hey, you're an international news guy.
Thanks. Well, they come to me when there's a crisis, apparently, right? We had, I was on about 2018, there was a CO2 crisis in Europe, and they turned to me and so I got my Andy Warhol moment of 15 minutes of fame on both BBC, Sky, CNN, those kind of channels, trying to explain why people couldn't drink beer because there was no CO2, right?
That is a crisis. That is very much a crisis.
That is a crisis, yeah. So, so in terms of the oxygen, I think what you're going to see is in 2021 as a fallout from 2020 is, you're absolutely right, George, hospitals are needing to upgrade. And you see, what I've learned through this so-called oxygen crisis is that when we built those hospitals, when those hospitals were built, if there was a 100-bed hospital, right, that was built, they would fit a system and pipe up a system to supply 25 beds, even though all those beds were piped up. They were the size of the system was geared to supply 25. When you go in a hospital, you don't see everybody on oxygen unless obviously it's COVID pandemic. If you've gone in if you've broken your leg or had a hip operation, you're not going to be really requiring oxygen unless it's for the actual operation. So and obviously with COVID, it doubled the number of people needing oxygen within the hospitals. So the demand, so what you're going to see right across the US is those hospitals will upgrade their, it's not a case of just a larger tank. It's the pipe work, the vaporizer, the pipe work, allowing a greater flow of oxygen to supply more of the beds in the hospitals. So that's so there's going to be a year of upgrades related to that, and hopefully our industry will benefit from that.
Right. And I think there's also been a large learning and change. I was talking the other day to a pulmonologist, and he was explaining the fact that, where maybe before it was 6 liters, now we're doing 40, 50, 60 liters. And they changed the rooms to be negative pressure, a lot of things that they did, and realized they don't want to incubate people. They want to keep people doing it in a different way. So that changes things dramatically as well, right? They used to do it that way.
Yes, yeah. And the other thing which has obviously hit the headlines, which is obviously with the COVID vaccine, that has spurred great interest from within our industry, was the Pfizer vaccine that has to be deep frozen, right, and transferred, or with the logistics of being at least colder than, well, in degrees centigrade, minus 70 degrees centigrade plus, right? And so there's a lot of excitement in dry ice. I mean, a little warning I have is that this is going to be a short term, over the next 6 months. I wouldn't be investing in a lot of dry ice capacity thinking that this is going to be the norm. This is a 6-month kind of peak window to help transport the vaccines initially within the United States, right? But eventually, I would expect Pfizer to come out with a vaccine that would be more chilled rather than frozen, deep frozen.
So, John, I got to tell you, I cannot. You watch an industry and you think you have something that you can say is locked down the way it is, right? So, helium. Love to talk about helium. So helium, I mean, we've gone for years now in the industry saying it's a very rare commodity. It comes out of the ground, it comes and separates usually from other hydrocarbons, and then it goes out to the atmosphere. It's not really recoverable unless you have a recovery system, at the point of use. And so we've seen this diminishing market of opportunity for gas distributors because there's less and less helium balloons because of allocation. So somebody might want 20 tanks for helium balloons, but they couldn't get 20, they could maybe get 4. And so there's been a tremendous reduction of really the focus on helium in many areas of a growth. Now we hear this is all changed. This is like a major deal because it used like the United States. What percentage of the helium did the United States have? It was a significant amount of the helium in the world, right?
Well, they were, 20, 30, well, say before the 1990s, they supplied 80% of the worldwide market for helium.
Right. And so now another country is drilling a hole in the ground. I'm assuming that might be what happened, and things have changed. So could you touch on that? I mean, this is like the big story.
Yes. Well, the interesting thing is that the situation in 2019 started to change, but we actually entered 2019, 2020. We actually entered 2020 still with a tight helium supply, pricing high, still some on allocation, and this wasn't just in the United States. This is worldwide, right? Okay, and we were in what they called helium shortage 3.0, right? Okay,
yeah.
And part of the reason for that is, particularly in the United States, the availability of helium has been declining in terms of production in the United States, because the natural gas fields have been depleting, right? And that's obviously the excitement was that was being replaced by natural gas from fracking, right? Okay. Unfortunately, there isn't the helium contained or the quantities available in the fracked natural gas to be worthwhile recovering and so on. So what you had was a general sort of, whilst natural gas supply now has gone up, the actual natural gas that had contained helium has been declining, and that has had an impact on the supply and demand. So now so that was one of the tightening aspects of that. And secondly, the demand for helium around the world has gone up or was driving was going up, and supply could not meet that demand, and hence in certainly the last decade, from helium shortage 2.0 in about 2011 to 2013, right, and all of that time there has been a real tight supply situation. And as a result, unfortunately for our industry, a lot of the technology and companies that were large consumers of helium, the MRI manufacturers, even the Cornings of this world that use helium in their glass and so on, they were looking at technologies to reduce the amount of helium that they used, or recycle. One of the two was recycling or reducing. So what has happened leading up to kind of like last year, and forget the impacts of the pandemic at the moment, the demand has been actually reduced, first of all, but also the thing is, it's been compressed. Now, a lot of the analysts out there are saying, well, now that there's going to be more helium available worldwide, that compression will be eased, and that helium demand will shoot up again. No, that's not going to happen, right? Because the damage has been done. The technology shift has meant that MRI units, which used to consume 5,000 to 15,000 liters to cool down, use only 50 to 500 liters of helium for each magnet to cool down. And that's just in the manufacturing process. So technology shift has damaged the demand sectors, right, for some of that helium. Obviously, there are other areas where helium will take off with more supply. Just in the leisure industry and the airship industry, there will be much more activity over the next 10 years just in the leisure industry, because there will be more helium available, and at a more, one would expect, at a lower price. So that would also boost demand.
So what has made this more helium available? What was the significant change that's all of a sudden we shifted from, hey, just plan on the fact that you're going to have less and less, you're going to have more allocations. You almost had to choose which customers to sell helium to.
Yes.
And the price was going up exponentially. So what changed that? What is the significant thing that made that change?
The significant change really comes from new sources of either new sources of helium, particularly in Eastern Siberia and Eastern Russia, so Far East Russia, as they call it, where they will be bringing on 3 world-scale plants in the next 4 or 5 years, right?
Oh, okay.
And that's big volume. And secondly, there's more helium available in the Middle East, particularly with Qatar and even potentially in Saudi Arabia, that will be recovered. So over that time, now it's all outside of the United States. So, but what that means is that, first of all, there's more helium going to be available, and the demand obviously has fallen slightly in 2020, again, because of the impact of the pandemic. But as demand starts to pick up, the availability of helium around the world is much more available, and therefore the supply and demand balance will be less tight. And with that availability, but one of the interesting things about the United States is that you were the worldwide supplier, as I mentioned earlier, to the worldwide market for helium. It is going to be a situation over the next few years that the United States will be importing helium, right, from those sources, which is a big difference, right? Okay, it might not be a great level to start off with, but there have been some imports of helium into the United States already. What you'll find is that will probably increase. So, and that means that helium availability in the United States gives rise to more opportunities, particularly at the gas distributor end.
Yeah, because we were like a major exporter, right? Like it's like in the 80 million yard, it's a very, very large number, when you look at the cubic meters.
Yes.
80
Yeah.
million cubic meters is a large number of helium that we're exporting.
Yes.
So that will maybe slow down some.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'll have more available to us here in the United States.
Yeah. I think, you know, to give you an idea of the kind of the damage caused by the lack of availability and the high prices was that we reached a peak of 6.4 billion cubic feet of helium a year in, I think it was about 2011. We're at the 5.96 billion level at the moment, right? So straight away you can see that there's been a loss in demand, right? And that's not going to, as I said, rebound back. So there's got to be some other drivers behind helium growth going forward to get it back to the 6.4 level and grow beyond that. One of the very interesting areas, which again people might not think of, but the development of the space sector, again, with the likes of SpaceX and Orbit and NASA feeding all of this, means that there will be more helium used in space research, right? Because they need the cold that helium provides. So there's going to be a lot of that already going on, but that's going to increase as they start to feed towards the moon target and then the Mars target, whenever that's going to happen. But that kind of research will need more helium. So there are sectors that will help boost the demand for helium over the next decade, right? But you know, the realization or the realities of helium is that, you know, some of that helium demand has gone away for good.
Right. But it sounds like that might be a couple of years away to really start seeing the impact of it as these new production plants come online. So it's something to be aware of and know it's coming. Yeah. And there's opportunities in those areas. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to change the subject a little bit, and I'm going to ask you. I know that each time I talk to you before COVID, I could talk to you in like literally in a week span. You're in different countries across the world, literally. Yes. So how long has it been since you've not traveled anywhere? Well, actually, I'm asking other question. How much did you travel before, and how long has it been since you've been traveling?
Well, let's put it this way. Really, you should be asking my wife that question, because normally she would have my suitcase packed. I should do it myself, of course, but I would have my suitcase packed and it would be by the door, you know, for my next trip every 2 weeks. I'd probably be traveling somewhere around the world every 2 weeks, and certainly the latter part of 2019 and even in January, February 2020, that was no different, right? And you're right, whether it's the Middle East or Europe or the Far East or even in the US, yes, I was often inside a plane. My last trip was to Dubai at the beginning of March of last year. So there have been two kind of, I guess, benefits, or not benefits, but two impacts on my life. One is that my wife and I have never been together for so long since we got married, right? Because I haven't traveled. I mean, my life has been traveling, right, for business. And secondly, my feet have never been on the ground for so long in my whole working life, right? Yeah. So it's taken some getting used to.
Yeah, yeah. So that first plane ride, it will be almost like your first. It'll probably feel a little bit like your first.
I'll be excited. I'll be excited again. Yeah, as long as I don't have to wear like spacesuits and all this kind of stuff. To, you know, I'm not intending to travel again until A, I've had the vaccine, and B, that traveling is less restrictive. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. So you brought up the spacesuit. So a lot of things are happening in that whole space area. You know, we're really close to being able to bring people up there from a tourist perspective. You know, we got Branson's going and doing his thing pretty strongly now, and we got a lot of things happening with SpaceX. Are you a person who would be up for that? Would you do it?
I would, for certain. And I dare I say, I don't want to bring my son into this, but he would, given the opportunity, he would be volunteering for the first trip to Mars, even if it was a one-way trip, right? Yeah, so he's crazy, but I certainly, if I could afford it. But what's interesting is where I'm speaking to you today, and where our office is and everything is in the tip of the UK, and we have an airport nearby here, which has now been deemed a spaceport and is a potential area where Virgin Orbit will be taking off and taking trips.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So we'll see if that really happens, but it's been dedicated as one of 2 spaceports, I believe, in Europe for development.
Yeah. I always thought that was an interesting marketing piece, where if you're flying Virgin Atlantic, you can end up getting points and build up your points to go towards space travel. Wow.
Well, I've got quite a few, but I'm not sure how far that will take me. It'll probably take me up to about 50,000 feet, right? Not the whole hog, but
the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I am a big space fan, and behind this virtual background, I've actually got models of the Saturn V moon rocket from Apollo 11, right?
Wow.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I'm hoping one day to do is be able to watch a SpaceX where it's not just a takeoff. I really want to watch that thing come back down and be able to land. I mean, that's just that's just amazing. I imagine you probably love that opportunity as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I find amusing, and I know that it's kind of fiction, but when you watch some of the films being produced in Hollywood these days, like the one like The Martian with Matt Damon in,
right.
The technology there, you look at it, we're not that far away from it, right?
Yeah.
It's not make believe, and I think whoever the script writers were, or the writer of the book or whatever, was certainly taking, current technology and applying to what we could do in Mars. And let's not forget, as we're still on the subject of industrial gases, our industry, they can't get to Mars, they can't get to Moon without our industry being in play.
Yeah, right. From every aspect, manufacturing it, materials as light as they can make it, as strong as they can make it, and as much propellant you can stock away in the system to get up out into space. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I think it's an exciting time period. It really is.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next decade, particularly on that front, and how we can help. But I doubt if I'll be at the top of one of those rockets.
Okay. Well, we got to get you on the airplane so you can build up some more points there, and
true.
And at least maybe get up to 100,000 feet.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Start seeing the curve of the Earth or something. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. Well, listen, I wanted to ask you. One of the things we look at when people are in business, and especially younger folks that are coming into business, a couple of things you think, if you gave some advice, you're going to give some mentoring to somebody and said, hey, these are some things, because I think there are a lot of folks that are, they're in their early 20s and they're moving in their 30s and they're kind of dealing with different scenarios. What couple pieces of advice would you give if you were talking to somebody that said, hey, I'm at that spot moving into my career, what would be those couple key points that you'd throw out there?
I think maybe this is something that you and I would say because of our generation, but nothing beats face-to-face contact and relationship building, right? Yes, we have the technology just like this. We can't be together today in a studio because of where we live and we can't travel. But for the youngsters, there's a lot of, it's not even the phone, it's email and it's WhatsApp and it's Messenger, right?
Yeah.
And that's how they converse. And I still think, our industry, as you know, from your attendances of Gouda, which is a great gathering of our industry, it's a people industry, right? Okay.
Right.
And yes, we need to use digitization in our industry. But I personally feel that the person to person interface is so important, even if it's maybe once a year, once every 2 years. I mean, we don't see each other very much, but we see each other maybe at an SMC or a Gouda annual, right? But you know, there's I hope there's a bond or a relationship there that I know I can pick up the phone to you, or you can pick up the phone to me, and we can talk and, you know, chew the cud on our industry and what's happening, right? I don't know if you'll need a translator for this video call, by the way.
Oh, we're good. I think we're good.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
so
yes, and that's a great point. And sometimes I think, like a lot of things, right, there's a balance to everything. There's a lot of new technology can do a lot of great things. Sounds like some of your advice is you balance that with also the fact that it's not all technology. There's also that person to person.
But I think that's very important, because people are able to hide behind smartphones and laptops and things like this through email and so on, and that's something that you know, we have 30 people working for us in GasWorld these days, and yes, we can't be in the office together at the moment. But what I've said is, stop emailing and pick up the phone. Right. And if you can't pick up the phone, go and see the people. Well, obviously that's not possible, but that's the order. Our industry is a personal industry. Right. It's a person to person type thing. And look at the friendships. I mean, I've made friendships all around the world, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy most. Right. And they're from all different cultures. Right. So, you know, and that's the one thing, you know, we've got a lot of 20 somethings working for us. I'm sure you have as well. Not with just family, but with your workers and so on. And that's one of the most important messages that I would ever put over to is, you know, remember person to person.
Yeah, I particularly like the thing you said, and I think that sometimes people can email back and forth, and there's certain subject can be a little difficult to get the whole context across. And you know, we have in our company a standard rule that if you're on your third email back and forth, not just sending emails, but if you're sending an email where you're trying to really understand it and there's a confusion or a disconnect, pick up the phone. Yeah, that's a good time to pick up the phone and have the conversation. Because like most technologies, most tools, they're fantastic. You know, you just got to use them in the right time in the right place. So that's great feedback. As you're looking at 2021, if you said, boy, this is the thing a gas distributor should really be doing. It's 2021. Yeah, next 3 months, we still have some more COVID. I know I'm maybe being a little optimistic here, but you know, I'm kind of looking like April, May, things get to some degree a little more normal. I still think there's more vaccines that are going to be popping up that get approved, and hopefully that speeds that whole process up. That being said, as we look maybe the third and fourth quarter, what's the thing you think, boy, you know, hold on tight, go after it and do it? What you'd throw out there from your view, I guess from a worldwide view?
Yeah, well, actually, mine is my view, particularly of gas distributors. You see, it is slated towards what happens in the US, because we don't really have many gas distributors in Europe, right? So there is a big difference. But one thing that, and it is slightly controversial, and people have heard me say this, but one of the things that the gas distributors in the US have to try and become is more efficient of how they get the gas from the filling center or filling site to the customer, right? And be more efficient at doing that. And it is controversy because basically at the moment, every high pressure cylinder that is moved in the United States, or not every, but I would say 95% of the gas in those cylinders is you're using a cylinder that can only be filled at 2,400 PSI pressure. Okay, and so you're moving a lot of metal, obviously, when you're moving cylinder gas. The technology has been used for 20 years, 30 years to be able to fill the cylinders or to use cylinders that are at 3,600 PSI that you can use, or even 4,400 PSI. right? And that technology is very much there in existence, and yet the distributor community in the US is still stuck in the old time, right? Okay, so my message, and I hope it might be taken on board by distributors, but if you go out and buy a cylinder today, if you buy a cylinder that is only capable of being filled at 2,200 psi, right? That cylinder, is going to last 50, 60, 70 years. We've even seen them. CGA had some that were 90 years old. I think you were at that, sort of, or you're aware of that, right? So these cylinders last a long time. Well, when you buy a cylinder of 2,200 psi user pressure, right, you're actually buying redundant technology. Right? If we're embracing digital technology and all the most modern technology, why aren't the gas distributors embracing higher pressure technology? You can get double the amount of gas in a cylinder if you buy a cylinder that's capable of being filled at 4,400 psi.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the excuse that's always put to me is, well, the end users don't want it. I can tell you, if there's a big difference in the price of what they have to pay for the gas or how often they pay for a cylinder of gas, they will embrace the higher technology, and the fix is actually not a costly fix, right?
That's an interesting idea. Is it because I know, we sell a valve that has both, you can hook up both regulators to it and things like that, because you have to reduce the pressure.
Yes.
It is a dramatic infrastructure change, because I think that maybe your pumping station may or may not have that capacity, and then of course you have the end user and his regulators. But I think that was solved by having a valve that could have a pressure reduction on those type cylinders, which we sell that. And then I think you also have the fact that you have two different tanks in your fleet, right? So now you're managing two different tanks. But it's an interesting idea, especially for the more gases like helium and other gases that are more
valuable gases to start
valuable
off with.
gases.
Yes.
But I guess you could also look at the cost to transport a tank. If it's a lower cost gas, maybe that makes it more profitable.
Well, the point is with the cylinder, right? If one can actually say this, is that that cylinder, yes, it's going to cost more because it's a slightly thicker, slightly bigger cylinder, right? Okay, but that cost over 50 years is negligible, right? I mean, really is. And secondly, you can buy that cylinder and still fill it at 2,200 psi at this moment in time. So if I was a cylinder salesman and I said to you, George, right, you need to buy these cylinders, they're 4,400, okay, they're going to cost you 25% more or whatever, but they'll last you 50, 60, 70 years, right? And that when you then want to invest in upgrading your filling plant, right, well, then guess what? You upgrade so you don't have to do it in one foul swoop. You can take your time in upgrading facilities, but you can't fill then a 2,200 psi cylinder to 4,400, right? It'll go boom, right? So if anything, if there was a message that I wanted to try and put over, to your listeners, right, or watchers, is start thinking about your procurement of cylinders going forward. This isn't something new that I've said. I've been saying it for a little while, right? But it's still not being embraced within the US community. Now's the time to change.
I have seen an application where it made so much sense, and I appreciate your point, because I did ask you. I know that, like, I was in Hawaii and I saw a container load of helium tanks showing up, and of course, the weight and the container, that cost was about the same for the container to come over, but now they had X amount more helium in every one of those tanks. So from that perspective, it was a much large savings and made it very cost effective. So it's a great point. So that's an interesting idea. Is that pretty common in Europe to be using that pressure?
Its standard is 3,600 psi.
Oh, it is.
And that's a standard in practice. and more so the 300 bar, which is 4,400 psi, has really, been brought in. And
Wow.
the cylinder manufacturers have, worked with the gas companies in terms of saying that, well, you don't have to upgrade your facilities at the moment, but the cylinder is there. You should be buying this for the future. So there are a number of 4,400 psi serviced cylinders that are still being filled at 3,600 psi because they don't have those facilities in place.
Yeah,
but they will do over the next 10 years. They will do, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Okay. Coming on the podcast today, was there anything in particular you thought and hoped we would talk about that we haven't talked about?
No, I think hopefully it's been of interest to your listeners or readers or watchers. I think our industry is a great industry, and it's not because I run a media and events company or even my other company, which is consultancy. It is a great industry. There are lots of great people in there. There's a lot of innovation going on, right? And it will still be going on. And I think, and it's still growing, right? Our industry keeps growing. The analysts, the people that buy shares in the big companies like the Lindys, the Air Liquides, Air Products of this world, like our industry because it's consistent, right, and produces consistent cash flow and EBIT margins. And in fact, our industry is improved in terms of the EBIT margins. And what you'll find is for the gas distributors, right? Sorry, I'll put it's getting dark here now, George. Yes. So, our industry, benefits A from innovation, but B, the way that our sector profitability has improved, and the gas distributors have that opportunity because there's more profit in gas than there is in hard goods and consumables.
And I'll tell you, we are fortunate. Our industry has a lot of smart people, and really innovative people, and at the same time enjoyable people to work with. Just really salt of the earth type folks that would do anything for you and help you. And it really is a fantastic opportunity we've all had to be exposed to this marketplace.
Yes.
And I think that, the future from my view is that what's so cool about the industry we're in, atmospheric gases and all the other type of gases that we all sell from every market, from beverage on through to, semiconductor, we talked about, space, all these different markets it touches, is the fact that there's always that next thing, right? You think, okay, this is kind of what it's at, but the playing field changes. It doesn't matter. It might be cryotherapy that comes out, or all of a sudden there's a lot going on with cannabis and using CO2 for growing, plants. Yep. There's so many new things. Where breweries become a big thing now. All of a sudden there's a lot of opportunity in the brewery market, all the microbreweries. So it's always evolution of some other next opportunity, and it seems endless. It seems like it's just the next thing. And I think with the technology we're looking at, like we talk about with the space and the biotech and a lot of things, we're going to see more and more things spawning.
The one thing I suppose we haven't covered, which we can cover on another day, but you're sat in California, and the hydrogen economy is quite big there, right? And moving. The interesting thing is probably the gas distributors haven't really thought about this and engaging in the hydrogen economy, but there are opportunities there, right? Because this move to decarbonize, and reduce the use of gasoline and diesel in transport and so on. A lot of people still think it's pie in the sky, right? And there's a lot of hype, but you just have to see what's happening in California, for instance, right? And going green, and all the major gas companies are involved in the hydrogen economy. You've even got the new companies like Iwatani that are doing more in California on the hydrogen front. And one of the blessings of our industry is we understand hydrogen. The Exxon Mobils, the Chevrons, the Phillips, whoever is a player that is in the gasoline, in the diesel sector and so on, they don't understand the hydrogen molecule. Our industry understands the hydrogen molecule. So one of the things, we haven't touched on, but some people might have to start thinking about is it's another new avenue, and it's going to take 10 years to roll out, right?
Yeah.
To be sure. And it will vary. I mean, I can't see it happening in Texas because of all the oil and refining capacity there, but in other places.
I got to say though, supporting your comment, our Ratermann Cryogenic division, which is in Houston, we find across the country a tremendous level of interest in hydrogen. It's not just a California thing; it's across the country.
Yes, yeah. So that's something I would also sort of say to the gas distributors and those listening to if not do anything at the moment, keep an eye on it, because it's likely to take off.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for being on our high pressure podcast today. I really enjoyed it. I know that we're going to probably have you on the R bar, which would be a lot of fun. We'll have to time that because you're in a little different time zone as us. So yes. To do that, you'd be having a cocktail at the right time zone, and I'd be having a cocktail way early in the morning than I should have. So we'll have to find a way to do that. But that maybe late at night for you and maybe mid afternoon for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Oh, I do have one other thing I want to say. Thank you very much. I know we had maybe you could touch on the award that you have that you gave out this year.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, congratulations to Ratermann, because you won an award. And what we're trying to do is bring more spotlight on our industry in some of the things that we do, because a lot of people see us as an invisible industry, actually, right? And that's because of the air we breathe is invisible, right? And a lot of people don't understand what our industry really stands for and so on. So what I wanted to do was introduce some kind of awards for awarding companies that weren't really associated with us as such, but what they were doing for our industry, right? And we're intending to roll this out in a bigger way to embrace innovation as well this year. But what we did last year was we wanted, at the end of the year, it was, let's face it, it was a challenging year. Some people would say it was a bum of a year, one of their worst years that they've had.
Yeah.
But they were embracing different ways of getting the messages out there, right? And one of them, and I felt that, we're there, we're putting out information, right? And we're also embracing some of the new technologies. But some of our industry players were just taking it to the next level. And congratulations to Ratermann. The reason why we elected to give you an award for promotional campaign, which was part of the R bar, part of this as well as sort of using that kind of best use of that technology, was that it was working. Right. And I think it was working. You were getting people from around the world tuning in to what you were doing. Right. Even though you might not be a global player. Right. It was very effective. So we decided it was a little bit of a spur of the moment for me at the end of last year. But I said to my whole team, 30 of the people working at GasWorld, right, who has been making a difference out there? Right. And let's just look at how we've embraced getting the messages out. And there were a couple of companies that stood out from the crowd, really. And we were pleased to say that Ratermann was one of those. And so justifiably, yourself and Marie and the rest of the Ratermann clan and the company really stood out as a company that were using different platforms to get your message out and get information out, which was great. So, thoroughly deserved from our perspective, and unbiased as well, right? Because I didn't influence it. It came from the team.
That's great. Yeah, I say Marie, runs our marketing division, and Marie Ratermann, and then also Jake Williams. They both did an outstanding job in that whole arena. Put a lot of energy and time into it. And we did a lot of new things. We had the R Bar, which we did, and we've had our podcasts and all the different industry folks on the podcast, as well as a lot of other kind of things we've done on social media, and a lot of training videos, a lot of things, really to try to bring value. Right? How do you bring some value? We're here to sell things. We need to sell things to make money, but how do you really make a difference and really support things like GATA and CGA and a lot of the other great organizations out there? I think I appreciate the award. I think they did a fantastic job of really hitting all those different mediums. So thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate
a pleasure, a pleasure, and really thank you for having me on your pod show. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Well, thank you so much again, and I can't tell you how much I look forward to see you in person and be able to catch up there as well. Hopefully, we can do that very soon.
Yeah,
and thank you again for being on the High Pressure Podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, George. Thank you.